Hello and welcome to this video where we're going to go through a GCSE exam paper. This is Pearson Edexcel's November 2018 paper, and this is the first paper in a series of 3. This is non-calculator. As we go through this, there are questions that are different between the real exam paper and this Maths Watch variant. These will be highlighted with red text. Let's begin. Question 1. Write the following numbers in order of size. Start with the smallest number. So we've got 5 decimals, and these need to be placed in order of size starting with the smallest. Now the easiest way to do this is to make all the decimals the same length so you can compare them easily. So the longest of these decimals is 0.152, which has 3 decimal places. So what I'm going to do is add zeros onto the end of these others so that they all end up with 3 decimal places. What that allows us to do is treat just the numbers after the decimal points as the numbers we use to round, because this 0.400, while it's still worth 0.4, which is 4/10, by adding 2 zeros we could also think of it as 400 thousandths. All of these numbers can also then be thought as thousandths. So the smallest of these will be 0.020 because that's 20 thousandths. So 0.02 is the smallest. I'm going to cross off each number as I use it. The next smallest will be 152 thousandths, so that's 0.152. After that, it's going to be 200 thousandths, so that's 0.2. Then 370 thousandths, which is 0.37. And that leaves us with 400 thousandths as the biggest, which means 0.4 is the biggest. So we have placed all the decimals in order, smallest first. Question 2. Write 0.6 as a percentage. To turn any decimal into a percentage, you just need to multiply it by 100. So 0.6 multiplied by 100 is 60, which means that 0.6 is the same as 60%. Question 3. Here is a list of numbers. From the list, write down a factor of 10. A factor is a number that goes into another. So factors of 10 are the numbers that you can divide 10 by and leave a whole number answer. I'm going to write down all the factors of 10 to begin with and then see which one matches these numbers in the list. So factors of 10, the first pair of factors is 1 and 10. 1 times 10 is 10, so we know they both go into 10, but also 10 divided by 1 gives you the answer of 10, and 10 divided by 10 gives you the answer of 1. The second pair of factors is 2 and 5 for the same reasons. So these are the factors of 10. From this list of numbers at the top, the only one that also appears as a factor of 10 is the number 5. Question 4. Write 7,829 to the nearest 1,000. So we've got 7,829. If you think about this in place value, the 9 is a unit number, the 2 is a tens, 8 is a hundreds number, and the 7 is the thousandths. Okay, so the thousands is 7, and that is what we're trying to round to, the nearest 1,000. So we're rounding that 7, but we need to decide whether it rounds up to an 8, so it's 8,000, or whether it stays as a 7, so the number becomes 7,000. To do that, we use the next number along, which in this case is an 8. We call that a decider. Now if a decider falls between 5 and 9 inclusive, that means that we will round the number up because it would be over halfway. If the number is a 0 to a 4, then the number is going to be made smaller. I'm usually hesitant to use the word down because this 7 doesn't go down to a 6. The whole number goes down, but only to 7,000 if that is the case. In this one, we've got an 8 as our decider. 8 is between 5 and 9, which means we're going to round it up. So 7,829 will become 8,000. Question 5. Work out 3 times 5 plus 7. This is a BIDMAS question, which means we need to decide which calculation comes first, whether we do 3 times 5 first, or whether we do 5 plus 7 first. Multiplication comes before addition, so we're going to do the 3 times 5 as the first calculation. 3 times 5 is 15, and then we will add the 7 to give an answer of 22. Work out 2 to the power of 3, also known as 2 cubed. The power tells you how many times you are multiplying this number by itself. So 2 with a power of 3 means we're multiplying 2 by itself 3 times. And 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 again is 8. Part C. Write brackets in this statement to make it correct. So at the moment, without the brackets, 7 times 2 would be 14, and then add 3 would give you 17. But we need to make the answer equal to 35. So you could do this with trial and error, trying to find which numbers to put it round, but hopefully this one should be fairly obvious that 35 is 7 times 5, which means we've got 7 times, and in order to make the next number 5, we need to place brackets around the 2 plus 3, so that when we apply BIDMAS, that is the first part of the calculation that gets done. So 2 plus 3 is 5, 7 times 5 is 35. Question 6. Sue has 2 cats. Each cat eats 1/4 of a tin of cat food each day. Sue buys 8 tins of cat food. Has Sue bought enough cat food to feed her 2 cats for 14 days? You must show how you get your answer. So let's work out how much the cats eat in one day. She has 2 of them. So the first cat will eat 1/4 of a tin. The second cat will also eat 1/4 of a tin. So in one day, these cats will eat a total of 1/4 plus another quarter of a tin of cat food. When we are adding fractions together, the denominators, the bottom numbers, need to be the same. In this case they are, and once that's true, we are only adding together the numerators, which are the top numbers. So we are only doing 1 plus 1 to get 2. The bottom number, the denominator, stays as a 4. 1/4 plus 1/4 is 2/4, and if we simplify that fraction, you can see both numbers can be divided by 2. If we divide each of those by 2, the fraction will simplify to 1/2. So, Sue's 2 cats will eat a total of 1/2 of a tin of cat food each day. So, in one day, so if I have a look at the combination of days and the amount of tins of food is eaten, one day will use 1/2 a tin. Sue buys 8 tins of cat food. So if we can turn this combination of information up to 8 tins, we can find out how many days that is. So if he eats 1/2 a tin in one day, if we double that amount, we'll eat 1 whole tin in 2 days. So from one line to the next, that has been doubled. If we then multiply by 8, so that 1 tin lasting 2 days means that 8 tins will last 2 times 8 is 16 days. So the answer is yes. Sue has bought enough cat food to feed her 2 cats for 14 days, because actually she's bought enough to last 16 days. Question 7. There are only apple trees, cherry trees, pear trees and plum trees in an orchard. The pictogram shows information about the numbers of apple trees, cherry trees and pear trees in the orchard. So we have a pictogram. The key is telling us that a full square is representing 4 trees. We are also told there is a total of 30 trees in the orchard, and our task is to complete the pictogram, which means we are completing the bottom row to show how many plum trees there are. So we're going to use the key to determine how many apple, cherry and pear trees this orchard has. So if a full square represents 4 trees, that means that each of these for apple are worth 4 trees, which means the total number of apple trees is going to be 12. For cherry, we have a full square that's representing 4. Now this smaller block is 1/4 of the larger block, which means if a large block is worth 4 trees, a quarter of that will be just 1 tree. So there will be a total of 5 cherry trees. Same thing for pear, a full one is worth 4. This is half of the amount. So half of 4 means that is worth 2 trees, so there are 6 pear trees. Now if we add up how many trees we already have, so we've got 12, 5 and 6. If you add them together, we've already dealt with 23 trees. We know there are 30, so if we do 30 and we subtract the 23 trees we know about, we can work out that there must be 7 plum trees. Now we just need to represent that on a pictogram. The 7 can be split into a 4, so that means we're going to have a full square block, and 3 means that we're going to have part of a block. And if you look at the smaller blocks we already had, we have basically going to put these together to say that it's going to be 3/4 of a larger block, giving us a total of 7. Question 8. Write down the coordinates of point A. When we're talking about coordinates, coordinates are always in the format of x followed by y. So as a number from the x-axis goes first, and a number from the y-axis goes second. So if we look at point A, and we go up to see the number from the x-axis, that's a -2. So the x-coordinate of point A is -2. And now we need the y-coordinate, so back to point A, and go across to see the y-coordinate, that's -1. And we have therefore completed our coordinates for point A. -2, -1. Part B. On the grid, mark with a cross the point 2, 3, label this point B. Once again, we have a set of coordinates. The first number is x, so we're going 2 on the x-axis and 3 on the y. So across the 2 on the x-axis, we are here, up to 3 on the y-axis, we're up to here. We're going to mark a cross, and we're going to label it B. And part C. On the grid, draw the line with the equation x equals -4. Now people often get confused when it comes to drawing lines where it isn't y's and x's in the same equation, but actually this is fairly straightforward. X equals -4 means that when we have a series of coordinates, so if I have some coordinates, it's telling us that the x coordinate is always equal to -4. That first number is always equal to -4, and that is true of every single point on that line. So all you need to do is imagine some numbers that could be our y coordinates. So for example, I'm just making these up as I go along. I could say -4, 4. I could say -4, 1. I could say -4, -2. These are all different coordinates, but what they have in common is that x, the x coordinate, is always equal to -4. If you plot those, you can see where this line is going to end up. So -4, 4 is there, -4, 1 is there, -4, -2 is there. You can see that these are forming a straight line that is going to cut down through the x-axis at the number -4. That's the second way you can imagine these lines looking. If you say x equals -4, that means it's a line that cuts through the x-axis at the number -4. Question 9. G equals 9. H equals 4. Work out the value of 2g plus 3h. Well, 2g means 2 multiplied by the value of g. We're told that g is equal to 9, so that part is worth 2 times 9. 3h, very similarly, means 3 multiplied by the value of h, which is 4. And then these two numbers are going to be added together. So if I go down one more step, 2 times 9 is 18, 3 times 4 is 12, and when we add these numbers together, that whole thing is worth 30. And question 10, this is going to be the last question of this part. Write down 2 prime numbers that have a sum of 32. Right, first of all, prime numbers are numbers that can only be divided by one and themselves. They have exactly 2 factors. The first prime number is the number 2, because you can divide 2 by the number 1, and you can divide it by the number 2 and nothing else. People often mistake the number 1 as a prime number, but that only has one factor. It just has itself, therefore it doesn't fall into the category of prime because it needs to have exactly 2 factors. So let's list some prime numbers. So we've got 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, 23, 29, and 31. I'm going to stop there because if I go any higher, then it's definitely not going to have 2 numbers that are going to sum of 32. Now, sum of 32 means that we're going to be picking 2 numbers from this list, so that when we sum them, which is another word for saying adding them together, we'll get an answer of 32. Now, there's actually 2 ways of doing this. Okay, one of them is by doing 19 and adding 13. So 13 and 19 will add together to make 32. The second way of doing that is by doing 29 and 3. That's going to be the end of this part of the video. Join us for part 2 where we'll start on question number 11.